What's up guys, it's me Shaman, and today we're going to be talking about the power system in Soul Eater. At first glance it might not seem like this power system has a lot going on with it, but I assure you there's a lot more going on with it than originally meets the eye. A lot of things going on with this power system are very easy to overlook, so that's why I took it upon myself to simplify it in a way for you to have a better understanding of it. So the first thing I want to talk about are soul types. So the main factor determining what type of soul you may have would inevitably be your race, whether you're a Shinigami, witch, werewolf, or even a human. And in special cases, there are actually mixes. For example, Free, the immortal werewolf, is mixed between a werewolf, human, and a witch. And this isn't taking into account that all these races have different personalities as well. Medusa and Arachne are both witches, but they have different souls. Humans, whether you're a Meister or a weapon, have different souls as well because of their personalities. So basically, there are a bunch of different races. And within those races are a bunch of different personalities. And with these two basic combinations, we can find ourselves with a bunch of unique and different kinds of souls. But this is really only the tip of the iceberg, because this is really only just the individualistic part of the power system. As an individual, you'll always have your own traits. We have this baseline, which are race and personality, but morality takes a big part in this as well. And this is exactly why Arachnophobia wanted the morality manipulation machine, because without morality there'd be no madness. And indeed, madness is measured by morality. Using this demon tool, we will debase people's conceptions of morality and play on whatever small amounts of madness they have to incite them to acts of madness. So we have all these unique souls based on personality and race, and then when we throw morality into the mix, that'll give us the souls of two different types of people. The souls of evil people and the souls of good people. The type of souls that make you stronger are actually the souls of good people. So when it comes to your soul, morality can actually play a big part in it. So as you'd imagine, that would make an absurd amount of variety. And that's not even including special kinds of souls, such as a soul like Mifune's, a soul that is equivalent to 99 human souls. Or a soul like Maka's, which is a Grigori soul, where the chances of having one of those are 1 in 50 million. Now before we move on to the next part, I just want to make sure everyone is following me. So we have souls based on different races and personality, and within those souls we have good souls and bad souls that are changed depending on morality. And within that bracket we also have special types of souls, and I'd say that these are the absolute basics when it comes to souls and Soul Eater. So now if you want to make a cringe ass OC that's part werewolf, part witch, has a Grigori soul, and is also consumed by black blood, but let's not forget one detail: he's also part weapon and Meister! If you're gonna make a cringe OC, you gotta do it right. And now you know how to do it. All starting with the soul. And yes, the power system all starts with the soul. But there is another part of the soul that we must cover: the soul wavelength. Now, when we're looking at this image of a soul, the little white fire that we see is actually the main portion of the soul, or the base of the soul. That will typically be the part that will reflect the personality of whoever's soul it may be. Now, if we look around the soul, we see electricity and we see a light radiating from it. That would be known as your soul wavelength. To make it easier to understand, what I'd like to say is, think of it like a light bulb. The soul is the light bulb, and the light coming from the light bulb is the soul wavelength. So think about it like this: I might be a funny guy and my soul might reflect that. So my soul is going to create this funny aura. Let's say there's somebody out there that doesn't like funny guys. When they get in range of my soul wavelength, they might not like that, so we'd be incompatible as partners. But before I start talking about partners, weapons, and weapons meisters, I like to focus specifically more on the soul wavelength because there's a lot to uncover here. So the first thing I want to talk about are the different types of soul wavelengths. Obviously, every kind of soul is going to have a different kind of soul wavelength depending on their personality and all that other stuff I mentioned before in the video. As I said before, when it came to the types of souls, hence a good soul and a bad soul, this actually plays a part in what kind of wavelength you're going to create. There are a bunch of different types of wavelengths, but I'm not going to cover every single one because I don't want to make this video an hour long, so I'm going to do the most basic ones. So obviously, there's your generic soul wavelength that everyone has. I guess you could say a neutral wavelength. Now, just like good and bad souls, your neutral wavelength is basically your good soul. As for the bad soul, that would be a madness wavelength. Keep in mind, Without morality, there would be no madness. And indeed, madness is measured by morality. So if you were an evil soul, you could develop a madness wavelength, because madness exists inside of everyone, some more than others, like Stein. And if something were to prod or incite that madness, like black blood, or if you were an evil soul, you would then develop a madness wavelength. Now we have a basic wavelength, a madness wavelength, and the other very important wavelength is an anti-demon wavelength. This would be the opposite of a madness wavelength. Anti-demon wavelengths are used to combat madness. And this is what makes Maka so special, because her anti-demon wavelength is what helps pull everyone out of madness, Kid and Black Star included. But unfortunately, it seems as though anti-demon wavelengths aren't as common as you think. So with the type of souls and the type of wavelengths out the way, let's talk about the type of classes that exist in Soul Eater. Classes aren't the official names for these, but I feel like since they don't have an official name, this would be the most appropriate thing to call them. If you don't want to call them classes, I guess you could call them combat archetypes. So obviously the first one would be a Weaponsmeister, and a Weaponsmeister is somebody who uses a demon weapon. Then we have Enchanters, people who make clay puppets and fight using golems. We actually see Enchanters make up a portion of Arachne's army during the fight for Brew. As for the next class, we obviously have Witches, who all reside in the realm of witches. Basically, they're a bunch of girls with magical powers that crave destruction. And I'm actually not joking about that crave for destruction part. Also, fun fact, just in case you didn't know, Fire Force is actually connected to Soul Eater. And this craving for destruction is most likely caused because Inca is the first ancestor of all witches. And if you read Fire Force, you'd know one thing, that Inca definitely craves destruction. So this pull of destruction that every single witch has is caused by this. Outside of witches and girls with magical powers, we actually have another variation of magic users known as sorcerers. Then we also have assassins, basically your typical members of the White Star clan. And the last one would be your basic or more typical fighter that exists within the verse, and that would be a martial artist, someone who is fighting without a demon weapon. Characters like Mifune or Ninpo users like White Star. And in terms of martial arts, there are many different variations of those as well. For example, Free uses his own type of martial arts, fighting Wolf Fist. Kid uses his own form of martial arts, which is known as Death God Taijutsu, and Theodore using the command Kosei. Typically, if they're not using a weapon, they're most likely going to use a different form of martial arts. But that doesn't mean people who use weapons cannot use martial arts as well. And I know there's a lot of information to take in at one time, so I'm briefly going to go over everything that I just covered. So we have a bunch of different races and personalities which make up a bunch of different souls. All these different souls based on morality can have a different wavelength, unless you're lucky enough to get an anti-demon wavelength. But even then, that doesn't mean you still can't succumb to madness. And within those souls with different personalities, different soul wavelengths, they also fit into a character archetype. Typically, they are martial arts styled, because 9 times out of 10, if you're not using a demon weapon, you're going to be using martial arts. But if you're somebody special, you're most likely going to be a witch, Weaponsmeister, assassin, enchanter, or sorcerer. But typically, that does not mean that you cannot be in more than one class. For example, Kim is both a Weaponsmeister and a witch. A demon weapon typically not being able to fight could also fit under the martial arts bracket. Giriko could be a demon weapon, an enchanter, and use martial arts. So all of these things would make up the absolute basics of this power system. The basics on the individualistic fighting type of way, because we haven't even talked about soul resonance yet, or the different types of meisters that can exist, the different types of techniques that they can possess, the different types of techniques that witches can possess, and so on and so forth. And that's not including Death Size and their own personal abilities, or the use of demon tool soldiers, or people who have been augmented by demon tools. What really makes Soul Eater's power system so special is the fact that your soul can define you and how you'll inevitably fight, allowing you to use a bunch of techniques that you probably wouldn't be able to normally use. Now that's just the tip of the iceberg, because these powers, these individualistic characteristics, have the ability to combine due to a soul resonance. And this is what puts weapons and meisters on an edge over every single class there is. For example, Mifune is your typical martial artist. He's so strong by using just regular swords. Could you imagine how strong he'd be if he was using a demon weapon as a meister, or a death scythe for that matter? His martial arts skills are so high, he'd be on a completely different level as a meister. And I couldn't imagine how strong he'd be when he's able to fully utilize a death weapon or even a death scythe. Because once you combine with those abilities, you are on a completely different playing field. And when it comes to these combinations, this is where the meat of the power system really is. The strength of the individual leading into the strengths of multiple individuals being connected. And that's what Soul Eater is really all about, and we'll be talking about that in the next video. I hope you guys like this video. Don't forget to comment, tell me what you liked about the video, dislike. Don't forget to subscribe, and with that, I will see you guys in the next Fire Force or Soul Eater video.